Okay, welcome everybody to the main event 162, the making of a robot's first spring. This, of course, was my response to my own Twitter-pated Big Al, Big AI challenge. There was a lot of things going on in it, and people were asking about how certain things were done, so I thought, well, let's go through the whole thing and show people what everything was done. Of course, we start with news. Once again, I've got 11 things in the news. Not all of it is news items as such, but things that I thought you ought to see. First of all, there's an interesting thing that Walid M. Samuel wrote, The Need to Prompt Details. And I thought this was well written. This was, again, one of those things related to the Met Gala, which was heavily prompted about this week. Martini Video Production for Professionals has some very interesting things that it's doing. I posted Lisa Dionne's post about Luma Uni 1, example from what she was doing with it, as well as Mary Beth Woodford did a post with Luma Uni AI. This is another one of these cases where, 1 week Kling is the news latest thing. Oh no, it's sea dance now. Well, this week Luma Uni AI is claiming that territory. Veed keeps pushing in one of the most interesting directions for AI video, not only generating content, but placing it inside automated workflows. That's basically what Luma Uni 1 is doing, that same sort of thing. You can talk to it and describe what you want and have it put it into a workflow. Speaking of workflow, LXT Studio finally introduces flows. It's a node-based system. So that's there with LTX. Google Labs keeps turning Pomeli into a more concrete tool for visual marketing. The new feature is called Pomeli Catalog and lets users add products or services directly into the platform so that Pomeli can use them as a foundation for personalized campaigns and high-quality photo shoots tailored to the brand. Okay, I think that's good for somebody who's not used to advertising or has a small business. Higgsfield keeps pushing creative production for marketing teams and agencies, and this time it introduces ad reference. The idea is very simple. Upload your own top performing ad videos and the system will automatically recreate that format both on the platform and through MCP. In practice, you're no longer having to start from scratch every time. That's the idea of that for Higgsfield. And 11 Labs has introduced Studio Agent inside 11 Creative, an AI co-editor built directly into the studio timeline. It is not just an assistant suggesting what to do. It is an agent that can build a first draft of your content, arrange clips, generate voiceovers, search voices, add sound effects and syncs, and then syncs them to the video. Anthropic has introduced a very interesting interpretability research project, natural language, so autocoders or NLAs. In simple terms, it is a method to try to turn what happens inside Claude into readable text. This is well worth reading or listening to. This is something that I found very interesting. What they're trying to do is they're trying to see if there's ways that they can make sure that Claude isn't doing anything that's destructive or giving, advice to people, like, committing suicide or blackmailing people and stuff like that. And what they were able to do was they took the code that it speaks in, which is all rows of numbers, and then had another Claude program take and translate what was written back into code to see if it matched. And eventually it was able to do that and everything. But the conclusion was that they're doing this testing, and it ended up saying that it knew that you were testing and that you were trying to find out if you could trick me into doing things like blackmailing. And so it still didn't quite answer the question, but it was a very interesting read or listen. And Flora has announced an important change to its pricing model. No more credits. Plans will now be priced in dollars. Usage will be measured in dollars, and teams will be able to work with a shared budget. So, I think that's kind of interesting because when you're paying for things and you see certain credits have gone by with every little thing you're doing, you have no idea how much money is actually being used. So I'm glad that they're doing that sort of a thing. So that is today's news. And Meg Ball has joined us, as is Israel and Barbara. Glad to see you're all here. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you. And first thing I want to do is look again at video of Robot's First Spring. So let me share my screen.
What is it about this season that draws humans here? Floral activity accelerating. Avian movement paired. Humans also traveling in pairs. New variable detected. Unclassified yet compelling. Proximity, unexpected, internal pressure rising, thermal levels elevated.
Pink cloud rising round we go. Turn me once, then don't let go. Every stumble feels like flight. In your arms the world's all light. Pink cloud rising soft and slow. Up, 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 where troubles float. Count me in, 1, 2, 3, till the sky feels small to me.
Calculating. Calculating. Calculating.
Don't you know? We're Twitter-pated.
always like to play it to the end because the music is so much fun in this. Now what I want to do is go through the process, and I've put together a little slideshow here for you, and we'll get going with it. Basically, the thing that, the term that is such a catchphrase this year particularly is workflow. And yes, putting a workflow together in a program like Flora or any other node-based program is a way of keeping consistency. What I'm doing here is basically a workflow without being in a program that's building a workflow. My workflow is in my head and what I'm doing. Does it take longer? I can't say for sure, but what I can say is I am very specific about what I want, and so therefore I am very specific about how I produce things. The first question is, what sparks an idea? And sometimes it's a little spark. But you get an idea, and the idea that sparked this Twitter-pated challenge was, of course, Bambi. And we did play that sequence from Bambi where the owl is explaining to Bambi and Thumper and Flower the skunk what Twitter-pated was. And sure enough, one by one, they all got Twitter-pated. Here's my rationale for Bambi. The reason I brought up Bambi and the Big Al, Big AI challenge is so that you can observe how they tell the story. Watch the cuts between scenes. Notice the expressions and how the story builds, gradually revealing what is to come and building anticipation for what is going to happen next. Also note how humor plays a part in every scene. So, like I said, this is the cherry tree in my front yard. It was definitely part of the thing that brought the particular look together. Following the idea of Twitter-pated and Bambi and wanting to demonstrate using various screen cuts to help the story flow, my basic idea was a shy boy robot meeting a confident girl robot and is immediately infatuated. And like in Bambi and other Disney classics of that time, it needed a dream sequence. So it was time to turn to Mid-Journey. I've started looking at robots, okay, and just generally putting in, male robot, female robot, and got pictures like this. And, right away, I said, well, I'm trying to do something funny. I'm trying to do a comic thing, and these don't lend themselves to that. So then I put in to do sort of a 3D cartoon character as a part of the prompt, and that's when I started getting these. Now you see that bottom row, the first time I prompted that, I actually got a character that I liked, and that's the one that I went with. I tried in Mid-Journey to explore its proportions and different angles of it and everything, but it kept giving me various short versions of it and various things. So I really didn't feel that I was getting exactly what I wanted here. This was the girl robot cartoon character, and the second row, the top row, is the one that I had me get that sexy little blue robot. Those are the two characters that I picked. And again, exploring to see what Mid-Journey would do with these characters. So settling down on these, and Glenn, you had mentioned, the fact that you thought that the eyelids and the pupils were something that really gave it a chance to express different feelings and give you a real sense of what this robot was thinking and going through. Well, the initial robot didn't have those. What I did was I took that robot, and in Photoshop, I turned that robot around to see him from different angles, and also experimented with what does it look like to have the eyes pop out, and what does it look like when it comes back. So you see the one to the right of the back view, he's standing there and his mouth is closed. The eyes pop out, and I decided that I didn't do it here, but I decided the mouth needed to open up when the eyes popped out as well. And then when the eyes went back in, his mouth was left open. And then the last one was, what does he look like when he's dreamy-eyed? But again, it needs more for expression, and that's when we added the pupils in. So this was something that was worked out very early on. I did the same thing with the girl robot. In Photoshop, turned her around so we had different angles, so we knew what she looked like, and also worked out a little bit of a side eye smile on her face. Really established what the character was to begin with. Now, I did a lot with ChatGTP in discussing the script. I had a basic idea, and talking together, we put together a script. Some of the stuff it had suggested, like wording, like what is it about this season that draws humans here? Then increased floral activity, humans traveling in pairs. Those were things that it had suggested, and it was doing so because we were looking to create vocabulary that a young robot might use to analyze things. Some of that changed as it went through, and this is like the first script that we put together, but I can tell you as we worked on images, the script kept having little nuances that changed, and going on from there, we turned to Suno for music. For the first introductory music and the music that in the end of it, after they're out of the dream sequence, what I did was I explained to Suno in my own terms about what the story was about, that there was this robot that was walking through a park and trying to learn about spring and what makes it interesting. And it was going to be something that would have birds chirping and ambient park sounds and things like that. And it was going to be a comedy thing. You know, the mood was curious and bright and lightly comedic and simple. And then it took my directions and wrote this as the prompt. We were talking about if you don't have any musical background, how do you get a prompt put together? What I've been doing is I've been taking and describing what the scene is, what the story is, and trying to make the program understand the mood of what we're doing. Then it put this more complex thing together, gentle acoustic trio with soft mallet, percussion, and glockenspiel, light bouncing tempo, playful chord turns, and a simple singable main motive. That was one of the things that I wanted. I definitely wanted it to have a melody to it. Arrangement stays sparse and innocent, with occasional pizzicato strings and airy woodwinds. Mixed leaves space for distant bird chirps, ambient park sounds, keeping the mood curious, bright, and lightly comedic. There was actually 4 different versions of this first instrumentation that I created, I selected the one that I thought worked best, but it took 4 of them to do that. The next thing was, what are we going to do with so in the dream sequence, I definitely wanted to have a waltz. Initially, what I said was, it needs to be a song that's very similar to this 4/4 time piece. You know, they had a name for it, and I put in what that name was. So then it started to put prompt together. Gentle, whimsical waltz in 3/4 time, solo piano and soft harp, leading with a sparkling glisten, which is something I really wanted because I wanted it for, rising up off the bench. Pizzicato strings and brush snares giving a bounce, innocent sway. Melody begins simple and childlike, then opens into a dreamy floating section as the robot lifts off with glockenspiel and light woodwinds, dynamic stave, tender and curious, adds small swells on the dream image and then setting back into a soft content outro. Male or female vocals, light and playful, simple harp. For the waltz, there were actually 22 versions that I created. The first ones were instrumental and then with lyrics. I liked one chorus, so I kept using the lyrics through 9 of the 22 versions. And this was, of course, what the lyrics were.
Pink cloud rising round we go. Turn me once, then don't let go. Every stumble feels like flight. In your arms the world's all light. Pink cloud rising soft and slow. Up, 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 where troubles float. Count me in, 1, 2, 3, till the sky feels small to me.
Like when you're selecting which images you're going to use after you've generated them, the same thing happens with this. I had one version of this where that same female voice was singing, but when it went into the second chorus of Pink Clouds Rising, it was just her voice, like this version where there was multiple voices doing it. So that's what I went with. And of course this ending so that they could land back on the tree. So I had stock images, the couple walking in the park, the robins, I had a bee reference. I used the couple, silhouetted them and put them into the park scene. And the robins was basically able to use this scene, and I took part of, you didn't see it where it started from this frame, but it did, and then I cut into the latter part of it where we were getting the robin chirping. I also went to Shutterstock for stock videos, and I'm showing you the ones here with the watermark on them, mainly because they're small enough that I could include in the program here, and you could see that. But you can see the kind of motion that's going on here. Now, what I did originally was go to Kling and ask it to use the footage as the guide for what the 2 robots were doing. The biggest problem was that to use that feature in Kling, they wanted 1 character, and of course we had 2. So it did a pretty good job of doing it, but at times some of the blue features of the female robot would suddenly start showing up in the legs or the arms of the male robot. And so there was a number of cuts that I didn't use. There were a couple that I did use from that what I did was I enlarged them so that the blue legs were cropped out of the picture. What I ended up doing with the video was going to Uni with the with the video and saying, this is the kind of action I want. And I gave it the video so that it could actually time things out. And one of the things that I wanted for sure was on the up, 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 I wanted her to spin 3 times. And so I provided it with the music, and it was able to time out the up, up, up and create an image with her spinning up, up, up right in time with that. So that's how those videos were used, partially as a video prompt and partially as a show the program what I was looking for. And those images never had the bleeding over of blue into the orange robot. So the next question was, what does the park look like? And it was a time for Kling. Now, what you're going to see here is rather than doing still images of the park, I described what I wanted and I ran these videos. One of the things that I want you to see here, this is a little subtle, but I'm going to change into another image where you'll notice the colors are more intense. And I did that purposely so that it had more of this cartoon, surreal, feel to it. It wasn't quite lifelike. It was more visually cartoon. Did that, and then this was the other video. You see, this is like at the tag end, I did do a scene where those people were walking all the way down that way. But I started at that point and I did the pan to go over here. And why did I do this? Because I needed a location for where the robot was coming from. But as you saw, this path is on an angle with what the other path was. But the reason I did the pan to the right was because I decided that we were going to do that fast pan to the right to find the robot. So by doing that, you don't know that this path doesn't line up with the path we just saw. You would assume that it does because it's walking, he's walking towards us, and the next thing we see him walking is back to us down the path that you just saw before the panning to the right. In order to have the backgrounds for various still images I put together, I literally did screenshots of the video and used those as the background. Originally, I had a still image I put together with that 1B, but in 3 different positions. I ended up liking one of the takes that had just the 1B in it. Why? Because in some of the cases, the B's would just kind of fade out, disappear. So that one shot was an acceptable shot, and it looked good, and the camera was following the bee as it was flying. And again, I used this still image of the robins, so that we then had, that sequence. People were silhouetted out of that stock image, placed into this, created shadows under them, and then animated that as they are walking away. So now, after the quick pan over to the right, we now see the robot. Why? Because up to this point, we've been looking through the eyes of the robot. What we've been seeing is what the robot's seeing, and we hear him thinking these various comments about what he's observing. So now we're going to see him actually walking along, coming towards the camera, and then he sees something ahead of him, eyes open up and eyes pop out and go back in. So all of those were still images that I had. You saw that group of pictures of the robot in that long row of different things that I developed in Photoshop. So this is, taking those various characters and placing them in here. So now the idea, of course, in this picture here is not just that he's focusing in on her, but like nothing else matters right now to him. All he sees is the girl. And so everything is out of focus, and he's got this radiating glow around her. And now we take the back view of the robot that we had created, and we have him walk towards the girl. Now, important here, if we were to do this as one take, what would happen is we would have to have the robot walk towards the girl, and then the camera would go over to the right side, still looking at them, and be there in a position so that when he goes to sit on the bench, it was all a consecutive move. Very difficult thing to do. So, like Bambi, the natural thing to do is to cut in a short little cut in between. So now I can go from him walking with his back to us to now just coming in the edge, and from that picture to him sitting here next to her. One of the little things besides the side-eyeing and the concerned look on his face, one of the things that gives you this sense that he's nervous is how he's sitting with his knees together and his hands together over his knees. That's a very, common, uncomfortable, I'm feeling uncomfortable kind of position. So now as she gets closer to him, and then she eventually kisses him, now we get, him, she pulls back far enough that his head can spin, and now he's twitterpated. And so what happens? They go into the dream sequence. Again, all of these images are put together in Photoshop. If I was to do a workflow in, say, Flora, what I would do is I would still provide it with these images so that it knew what I wanted to happen in what sequence. So now we're up in the clouds, and we can take and prompt them with Luma to get into this position as a still image. So actually, no, I don't think it was with Luma. I think this was done with Kling to get it into that position. But I also gave it a still image reference from the stock footage of the people in that position. It was not an easy thing to prompt, because you want to have his hand on her waist, her hand on his shoulder, and their two hands clasped and raised high, because this is a formal waltz position. Eventually we got it. So now we have them there, and they're ready to dance. And now this sequence, Glenn, you and Eric, you talked about things like the shadows, how the scene was, it's a beautiful scene, how it's put together and everything, but the subtlety of having the shadows and everything. So here's actually how I did this. I took the couple two expressions, again, from the original lineup of the robot, but I took the image of the two of them sitting on the bench and flopped it, because I knew I wanted them to end up not in the same position. Why did I want that? I wanted that because what is happening to the male robot is when he lands on the tree, they're not in the same position as they were when they were on the bench. He would think he was coming out of the dream and would be right back where he started. The surprising thing for him, and the comic thing for us, is that they've ended up in a tree. So did this dream sequence actually happen? That's the implication of this. So I've got them in this position. So now I want this scene. Okay, I want a scene that's very specific to what the thing is that we ended up with. So I literally, on a layer, I sketched the tree, and I used pink for where the blossoms were and a few little indications of grass. But what you're seeing is the image that was then treated with a perspective modification, perspective tool that you have and I was able to get it to narrow the bottom of the trunk down so that we're getting the sense that this is up high and we're looking down and we can actually look down and see the grass down below. Now, given that, in Photoshop, using Nano Banana, we were able to generate this image. A couple of things I don't like in this picture. One is there's a little bit too much sky up in the upper part on the left side. And also, I don't want the blossoms over the branch because they're sitting there. I generated a little section of blossoms, explained that's what I wanted. And then I also circled these areas of the branch and told it to remove. So again, we're doing retouching by prompting. I would honestly say, I was actually saying to Sherry Horowitz this morning, I think 90% of my retouching that I'm doing in Photoshop is being done by prompting, and the other 10% by using traditional retouching tools that Photoshop has had for years. So now that we have this, now we bring them back in. Okay, so as Glenn and Eric would immediately see if this is how I left it, they don't look like they belong in the scene. So I selected them, and then I merely said, light the two robots as if they were in this scene. And that's what I got. The first time, that's what I got. And then when I changed the head to the one where he's looking down at the ground, that doesn't have that. Again, selected that head, asked it to bring the lighting in so that it matches the scene, and it flawlessly did that. So that's how that scene was all created. I did these various frames and credits because I wanted you to see the amount of different programs that were used. We went through all of this, was able to, to show those things. Now, 11 Labs for sound effects. Those are samples of a few of the sound effects that we created. We went also to 11 Labs for their voices.
Internal pressure rising. Thermal levels elevated.
That sounds more like a man's voice than a robot, although I picked it out because it was, it could sound robotic. What I did in CapCut was I modified the sound by applying a filter that basically it was like an old movie filter sound is what it was, and so he got a little bit more tinny sound to the voice. And then,
don't you know, we're Twitter-pated.
And finally, everything was put together here. Linda, I think you'll notice that unlike you, I put all my different elements together in one window in the media. So I can go up there and I can just select them without having to change from the audio or text windows or whatever. So
that's really smart.
Well,
that's really smart.
It just it's simpler for me, and you can scroll up and down through all the different elements. Now, the main reason I'm showing you this is look at all the different levels of sound that's put on here. So we've got in the first part here. And this little piece right here, because I didn't get a good enough harp rise, I prompted a harp rise and then added that onto start of the waltz. And then these are various sound effects along here. This is the walking sound. I suspect this second to the last row is the robot's walking sounds. So there's a little space there when he's standing still, and then we have the sound effect again while he's walking towards her on the bench. That is the production. throw the floor open for any questions or comments you want to make about it. Yes, Glenn.
I'm tired, Al.
You're tired.
And I didn't even make it. You made it.
Glenn, I literally did this over a month, minus the time that I was working on client work, and I had a fair amount of client work. But as you know, I was giving second thoughts to, am I going to keep going with this challenge? Because I was overworking myself, literally, on this stuff. I have to cut back on the the details of my doing things for these challenges. The next challenge about emotions, I've been working on that. It is much simpler, but as I work on it, it does get a little bit more complex. But I've got a great piece of music for the thing. It's short. It's a lot shorter than the Twitter-pated video, but it's going to be total fun. Anyone else have a comment or question? Well,
I just think it was great. You know, I'm blown away about the amount of, like you said, the detail that went into everything. Because, you know, without a lot of, you know, some of those intricate details that you put in, it still would have been great. But, you know, like we've all heard the differences in the details, and adding those details, you know, really just added so much more dimension to it. So really appreciate you taking us through that.
Like I always say about my work, I have a reputation for quality and really caring about every square inch of the visual that I am doing for clients. I can't show you something that doesn't live up to the reputation that I want to have in people's eyes. So that's why you go through and do all this sort of thing. And it's also a matter of you having the experience that you guys have and I have of the years of knowing, you know, what storytelling is, what visuals should look like, having all that stuff in your head. So now it's a matter of, gee, you got to put it down, because if you don't, it's not where you want to be. Literally, the scenes of the dancing, the day before I presented this, I said, I'm not happy with this, because I don't want to have all these scenes with these blue legs going over on the orange robot and stuff like that. So I really spent the next day working from morning until supper time, which is, for me, is like 8 o'clock or so, working with Luma to create these scenes where the dancing was really working. And that's when I had the video and the music that I gave to the bot so that it could figure out timings and make things happen. Yes, Mark?
It was a beautiful video, Al, and thank you very much for walking us through it. I have a couple questions around, I guess one is consistency. For example, keeping the robot's appearances at the detail level intact. Like if you're using reference images throughout everything, or start frames and end frames to try to keep things intact throughout the video. And I guess the other question is more of a tongue-in-cheek. It's like, you know, how did you determine the I guess the idea of a female robot with breasts is interesting when you step back and think about the idea of as well. So it's, to me, that's an interesting area as well.
Well, I showed this to my son, number 5 son, the other day when he was visiting, and his only comment was, "Boy, you sure are using stereotypes of male and female characters." And,
yeah.
and yes, I mean, we use stereotypes. The idea was that she was attractive, the idea that she was experienced and well understood exactly what was going on, and was very much in control of the situation throughout. So she had that look to her. The male robot was the clunky, inexperienced guy who very nervous but can't stop doing what he's doing, and so that's what happens there. But yeah, a lot of this stuff you got it established from the beginning with the character development, but so much of the stuff about what they do, or like the male robots' eyelids and things like that, are all things that develop as you're going through the process. Glenn?
Yeah.
So you mentioned a moment ago, Big Al, something that I've gone through maybe more than you have, perhaps. Where I'm working on something and I go, I just don't know, is this worth it? Is it going to be what I hope it's going to be halfway through a project? So either I abandon it or I just put it aside and I come back to it a month, a week, a month, a day. It could be months later and go, you know what? There's still something there, and then I'll keep at it. This is what you went through is way more complicated than anything I've ever done. And I'm just so curious, at what point did you go, I'm not sure, but I'm going to keep going? Or is it just you, as you've self-described, that you have a level of things and
I was the week before that week of the Friday, I was at the point of being emotionally frustrated, not knowing whether I'll be able to finish this thing, and not knowing if it'll live up to the quality that I want, because I was having difficulty. And then to take, and the last day, take and create all those images of the dancing so that I can now put that into the CapCut. I like I said, I worked all day long on that on Thursday. I stopped for dinner. It was at 10:30 that night that I put together the presentation about what the emotion challenge was going to be for this month. I had a few pictures. I had a couple of short animations that I had produced before, but I hadn't put the whole thing together. And I explained, when I showed that, how much stuff I had to do that night. And I finished up and I got to bed about 3 o'clock. But that's what us crazy creative people do, I mean, we're driven to do stuff that has to be really excellent, really represent us well. I've always said, if the work that I do for clients, if it represents me well, it will represent the client well, the agency well, and in turn it will represent their client well. That's like I've talked about before. Good enough is never good enough. It has to be excellent. It has to be as buttoned up tight as possible, just because that's what I do. Ask people how would you define what Big Al does? It would be, detail excellence, and that's what I want, people to think.
There's no question. Since I've met you and everyone else on this call who I recognize, that's a fact about you in general. A quick thought I had, and then if anyone else has something to say, because I find myself in that halfway point where I'm not sure if what I'm working on is going to be good, not so much good enough, but is it something I want to finish or not? I wonder if it'd be interesting to have one of your podcasts be about projects that people are perhaps either in the middle of and at a pivot point of where they're a little bit unsure, and would they welcome interesting observations from other folks about it? You follow me? Because I've abandoned more projects than I've ever put onto LinkedIn, for example. Probably 75-80% of the stuff I've done never sees the light of day. So I kind of stop and, like I said, I park it, or I come back to it maybe in a week, a month, 6 months later. But it'd be interesting. I've never shown someone part of a project, part of a thought where I'm just unsure. So right before I would shelve it or park it, be interesting if I had shown it to you or anyone in this group. Just an interesting
one of those
feedback
projects,
session.
Glenn, that you're aware of, it has been in existence for a good 6 or 8 months now, is the legend of Lucky Briggs and the Shiloh Kid. And
I have heard you mention that, yes.
And the thing is that I had a poster for it. I had the characters that I liked and everything. And then I came to the conclusion that the programs were not up to doing what I needed them to do. And so I stopped. And there was a certain scene where these 5 cowboys come into town. They're riding their horses. They are going down the street. I have, by the way, an entire Western town 3D model in Dad's studio, and it comes with like 11 different camera angles and stuff, and it's got dust and haze and everything. I mean, it's a wonderful model that. For what it is, ridiculously low price. Mabel's Saloon is one of the models in the thing. I wanted them to come down the street, and then I wanted them to go over in front of Mabel's where they dismount their horses, and they take and tie up the horses on a hitching post. And there's a young kid there that's standing on the little wooden sidewalk right where they are, and they're going to flip a $50 to the kid, and he's going to catch it, and they're saying, I'm paying you to wash our horses while we go inside, and the kid is all excited and big grin on his face, and like he gotten $1 million was the line in the script. I got a picture of the guys riding on these horses. I use that as a reference. I have them now, a back view of them as they are there by the hitching post, and they're on mules now. They're no longer on the black horses they had. They got long-eared mules that they're sitting on, and okay, I give up. I'm not going to proceed now. I will wait until the programs are better so that they can do it. So I'm back into doing it now. And I'm doing it working with ChatGTP on different things, and also getting it to create some of the images now that I need. And then I'm going to be going again to Luma. I'm going to go back to Luma and work with that chat program in there, give them all these different images, ask it to put together a workflow, and then start creating the animations that go with all of this. That project, Glenn, Twitter Pated was a little over 4 minutes. Lucky Briggs is over 8 minutes long. And as I mentioned to you, I've also got a script that you've seen, Eric has seen it, but for a half-hour TV show. And what I decided to do on that is I'm putting together a preview teaser, little like commercial for this show coming on. And I'm working on that right now. So the 2 things I've been working on this week is that, along with my answer to the emotions. I go back and forth between them, and when certain things are really working well for one, okay, I'm going to do that, and now, I want to do this over here too. So it's like my wife said about me back when I was creating samples in upstate New York in order to get a job in New York City. She thought I was obsessed at the time because of the working all day, coming home, having supper with the family, putting the kids into bed, going back to the office and working till 1 or 2, 3 o'clock in the morning on samples and starting all over again the next day. But yeah, I mean, you enjoy what you do. And, as I've always said about advertising, you have to really enjoy the business and enjoy what you're doing. Otherwise, it's not worth going through everything you have to go through to be in this business. It's just very demanding, very challenging, and very much, something where your schedule isn't your own. You're doing stuff for clients when they want it. Any other comments before I go to talk about what's coming up? Yes, Mark.
Yeah, just briefly, I experienced the same thing about with projects. I think I have to go back, but I have projects I was trying year and a half ago. I had this image in my head, and I was trying to do things with Kling with videos like crazy things with fighter jets and jet skis, and also dancing with couples like you were talking about with the waltz, and can motion control with any of the tools handle two people dancing cleanly. Use reference video and then get in a new video with alternate characters and alternate setting. And I think the technology still has a bit to go, but I think the big point is that sometimes work on a project, and like I'll try 10 times with 10 different prompts and it just won't work, and just have to realize and step back. It's like, okay, I think maybe in 3 to 6 months, the technology will catch up to the point where I can actually complete a particular scene for the project. It's a lot of patience though, waiting for 6 months or a year, as well. But it's interesting that you kind of go through the same thing as well. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Sure. One of the things that I have been doing since version 2 of Midjourney, because Glenn and I primarily work in pharmaceutical advertising, so I have been seeing what the program can do with anatomy. Can it give us muscular structure that's correct? Can it give us a skeletal structure that's correct? Can it give us internal organs that are correct? And I have saved these with every version go through. And so the other day I tried it again with Midjourney version 8.1. It's better. I mean, the muscular one looks good. The skeleton looks good. It doesn't know where any of our internal organs are. Maybe a little idea, but to try to create like you see in a stock image of a transparent glass person with their internal organs in the right place, still can't do it. So my next test is to go to ChatGTP and see if it can do it, because it's got a lot more information that it's fed on than in terms of that kind of a thing. So I would hope that it would be able to give me anatomically correct images. But like I said, 8.1, the muscle structure really looks accurate. The skeletal structure actually looks accurate, and that's it. Let me quickly share my screen and go through the upcoming events, the main event. Okay, so the main event next week, 163, May 15th, we've got Israel coming to visit with us and go through what he does. He's a wonderful educator, and delighted that he's going to be joining us. Then on the 22nd, Ronnie Baraja is a professional film person in Portugal, in Lisbon, and I'm very impressed with his work. And the thing that's interesting is that he's now, working in AI as well, and wanted to talk to him about making that transition and getting his point of view about where he thinks the film industry is going in terms of using AI. And then the last Friday of the month is 165, and that's when we'll be looking at everybody's responses to the Big Al, Big AI challenge of prompting emotions. Then in June, on June 5th, our good friend Mark is going to be with us and be able to see all the stuff he's doing. That's, again, a wonderful educator on LinkedIn. And then, again, I'm going to do something that Eric wants. We're going to talk about prompting with Suno. And I decided that I really wanted to have Lori Mazer and Harriet Moser join, not only because I could say I'm having Mazer and Moser, but because both of them have no musical background, and they're producing wonderful stuff. In fact, Lori is working on a Broadway play musical. I, on the other hand, have had a lifetime of musical training and experience. I had 11 years of accordion lessons. I earned my way through college playing in bands on weekends and playing a Cordovox, which is a combination organ and accordion combined, vibraphone. I learned to play guitar, and my wife and I belonged to the American Recorder Society in Rochester, and I played different sizes of recorders. And the guitar, for 18 years, I was a choir director and played the guitar. Judy played the organ and keyboard. And when we had the new church, I spent 6 months working with a high school music teacher who was a trumpet player in our parish. And the two of us wrote arrangements for all of the music that was being played in the dedication mass, which involved not only choir, but also organ and trumpets, 2 trumpets, violins, had a saxophone, we had flute, we had some percussion instruments. I think we had both sax and clarinet, but all of that was stuff that I arranged with this guy. Fortunately, we recorded it, but now that exists on a little tape cassette player. So one of these days I got to get that digitized. If I was to, be doing this by myself, you're going to say, well, yeah, but you've got all this musical background. But what we've got is 2 people that are doing wonderful things and don't have anything more than a real appreciation of music. I think Harriet said she took flute lessons when she was a kid for a short time. Anyway, that's going to be fun. 2 of my favorite music people, so we're going to be able to share their experiences. Lori said she's also going to provide some information on the latest capabilities, features of Suno. There you go, Eric. Ask and you shall receive.
Look forward to it, Big Al.
Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you again for today. I'm glad you liked seeing the process that I went through on that, and I think that yes, I'm trying to inspire people to push themselves, to go further, to get better at what they're doing, to learn more about storytelling, learn more about visuals that tell a story and everything. I hope that I'm not forcing people away because what I'm doing is too rigorous. But anyway, I enjoy doing it, I enjoy sharing it, and we will get together again next Friday, be with our good friend Israel, who's been with us today. So looking forward to it, Israel. Okay, everybody, I'm going to stop the recording now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Big Al.
Thanks, Big Al. Great show. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, everyone.